Jeff and Derek and everyone that helped put the service together today. It's an unusual circumstance, and it's an unusual service in some ways, but I hope you found it worthwhile. We're going to be talking about courage, being strong and courageous. And as we think about this, I want to think about it as we approach this new year. One of the things that amazes me is that when this passage in Joshua is discussed, what everyone wants to talk about is actually the idea of how what they were about to go through and failed to make that connection with ourselves. But what will 2023 look like? I have no idea. Have no idea. 2022 had some interesting elements to it, didn't it? Ones that we did not anticipate. And these are just the ones that were obvious. Gas prices, the economy doing some strange things, the crazy weather. Now, I'm not sure how crazy weather is in Buffalo, New York. It looks like that would have been kind of a given. But the flooding in the drought-stricken West is pretty extreme today. I don't know. Don't ask me to predict the weather. But I can look back at 2022 and go, there are some awful things that happened. Crime, illness, the invasion of the Ukraine, China, and what it's been doing and what it may do. And the truth is that last line with the question mark this morning I had to change, because right there I had the Buckeyes winning, going to the national championship, and I had to take that out. I kid you not. I went, well, you know, whatever personal challenges 2022 brought you. I was really surprised. I had to look on ESPN going, they actually lost. Wow. I don't know. None of these things were anticipated in 2022. How should I say what's going to happen in 2023? I can't. But what I can do is think about what it's going to take for me to do what I need to do in 2023. And it begins with this idea. Be strong and courageous. Now, there's a couple things that I want to point out as we talk about this. And I'm going to tell you right now that I should disqualify myself right now from discussing this topic. I've often shied away from discussing this topic for the very reason that I have never been directly threatened. There are people in here that are combat veterans. There are people in here that are firefighters, that their preparation is to run into places that you and I would be running away from. There are people in here that are police officers, law enforcement, that step into situations that their existence can be threatened, and yet they're doing that for the protection of others. What right do I have to stand up here in front of you and in front of them especially and say, okay, this is what it means to be courageous? So understand that when I say these words, that I'm taking a certain measure of myself here and wonder when those moments will be called upon, how will I do? Because that metal has not been tested. But it always causes me to pause. Would you be ready? Will I be ready? That's what this lesson is about. Just a few points to talk about this just for a moment. Notice that as God speaks to Joshua, that he is not saying, now, be courageous, get ready, don't be afraid, here we go. that there are things that he lays in place to help with that. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give the people the possession of this land, which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses, my servant, commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed. For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. How does he get through this? Now, I got to tell you, I wonder about Joshua as he has spent the last 40 years working with Moses. He's not a young man. He knows the trouble that they have faced in terms of the other nations around about. He knows the trouble that they have faced in terms of feeding the people. And more than that, he knows the trouble that the people have brought upon themselves. How am I going to manage this unruly mob? Be strong and courageous. And what is going to be the anchors to this begins with the first statement. Be strong. This is what it takes before the threat occurs. Do you know that that's a necessary part of being courageous? That you have done the footwork to be ready for that moment? In the case of what we're seeing was the preparation, the experience, the skill. Look at all that he said. You will not have the law depart from your mouth. You will follow everything that you have been told. You will listen to what I tell you. All those things that are buried in there because we're so focused on looking at be strong and courageous. The other parts are just as vital because that's what makes us strong. When we study, when we discuss, when we meditate on God's word, all these things, they are laying the foundation for when that time comes when we are called to find the courage to stand tall. We know why. And the other part is the motivation. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. But we need to have that fixed first. Then, when we talk about courage is not the absence of fear. There's lots of definitions. You can pull up definitions all the time, different quotations of people talking about courage. But one of the most common themes that you'll see is courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to push past the fear and into action because you have been motivated by something. Now, I'm going to tell you that I don't think some things that people do are necessarily courageous. There was a picture that came across my feed on my phone this week of a woman who had climbed the second tallest building in the world and was sitting at the very top of it with her feet hanging over the side. It made my feet hurt just looking at the picture. I don't like heights. I don't like edges. That's not courage. It has other names that I would label, but that's not courage. Strange fascinations may be one, but anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Why? When I am terrified, what allows me to take and still move, to do what I need to do? One of those is the preparation that I have already set in my mind, those qualities. Why do we study? Why do we worship together? Why do we look each other in the eye when we come together in a place, in a time like this. Be strong and courageous. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. This is the second verse that was read for us earlier from Matthew 10. Jesus, sending the disciples out 2 by 2, is going to be teaching, and he gives them lots of instructions. But one of the most enigmatic statements in this reading is this one. Behold, I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves, so be shrewd as serpents and as innocent as doves. Courage is not the absence of knowledge or wisdom. It means that we act wisely. It means that we think about what we're doing and why. That I am going to prepare for this in a way that means that if something goes bad, I'm going to have enough sense to go, I think I'm going to walk away if it's possible. Listen to the words again from this section that Jesus says. But whenever they persecute you in one city, flee to the next. Get out of town. For truly I say to you, you will not finish going through the cities of Israel until the Son of Man comes. Shrewd as serpents. I do not know what the tasks, what the challenges, what the problems of this year. I keep saying the next year. Here we are. I don't know what this year is going to bring us. But number one, we need to lay preparation because it could be very, very challenging. One of the things that Janelle does, I'm one of those people that doesn't do social media. I don't have any fingernails after I look at that for a couple of hours. But she does keep me in, and she does follow the church, a group of believers in the Ukraine. Don't know how you feel about the politics and all the situation there. I want to tell you, in the midst of that horror, there are some of our brethren. Now think about that. How would I do? Need to prepare now. Not only that, but I need to be thinking about and understanding and being aware of the challenges for our children, for our parents, for our spouses, for our jobs, for our recreation, for our media, for anything else that influences our life. Are we thinking ahead of time? Are we as shrewd as serpents? And being willing to say, I can't do that anymore. Put it down, walk away, step back, turn it off. But as innocent as doves. But I'm not here to start a political revolution. I'm here to serve the living God. Be as shrewd as serpents and as innocent as doves, because I want to tell you, when the time comes, I think we're going to need every bit of personal resource we can to face the challenge about ourselves. The coming year. Do not fear those who kill the body. This is from, again, a little further down in Matthew. But are unable to kill the soul. Rather, him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. What is the greater fear? Greater fear is not that we would die, but that we would be separated from God. You know that in essence is in many ways, the very definition of what courage is the fear that is approaching you at that very moment, that there is something that you would fear more. Not the soldier with the spear, but being separated from God. But there's another way to look at that as well. Let me introduce you to somebody. Captain William Swinson. I put his story in one of the podcasts. His unit got ambushed in Afghanistan. Captain Swinson, almost immediately, some of his unit was killed. Others were wounded. Captain Swinson ran into the fire, grabbed one of his sergeants, and pulled him to safety, and then ultimately helped load him into the medevac helicopter. The pilot on the medevac helicopter had a GoPro on his helmet. And so they have video evidence of all this. And they're watching as Captain Swinson loads his sergeant on to the helicopter. And then something remarkable happened. He leaned over and kissed him on the forehead. And immediately ran back to pull others to safety. What does that tell you? Simon Sinek, who is one of the leaders in corporate leadership and other things, but this is what he studies. He studies and discusses leadership. He'll tell you that the essence of true courage and the essence of leadership, how do you get people to run into machine gun fire? And it is not about nationalism. It's about love. Do you understand that right in this room right now, we have a wellspring of all the courage we could possibly need as long as we understand where it comes from, and that is love. My love for you, your love for me, your love for God. And that the last thing I would ever want to do, even if I was facing that Roman soldier with the spear or the soldier with the machine gun or whatever it is, that I would let you down or let down my king. When we do the preparation, when we be strong and we understand the word, and we understand the promises, and we understand what all this means, and I stand in that place that I can't anticipate what it's going to look like. But when my thought is, I would rather die than harm the faith or the confidence. And I don't think of this as you guys. But I'm going to take the action that means that I am going to secure the place as best I can for Briar. Because I love him. Or Derek. Because I love him. Or even those Ohio State fans. Because I love you. You want to know where courage comes from? It comes from love. Ask the soldiers that stand shoulder to shoulder in combat. They don't do it for government. They don't do it for country. They don't do it for politics. They do it for love, for the love of the man that's next to them. And if we find ourselves short on courage, I'm going to tell you the reason of this is because we have fallen short on love. And we need to dig deep and find it. If you want proof, Medal of Honor winner, right there. We're not here to combat. Listen to these words. To sum up all of you, be harmonious, sympathetic, brotherly, kind-hearted, humble in spirit, not rendering evil for evil or insult for insult, but giving a blessing instead. For you were called for this very purpose, that you might inherit a blessing. And sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts, always being ready to make a defense to everyone who asks to give an account for the hope that is in you, yet with gentleness and reverence. You see some themes that we talked about in Joshua? And keep a good conscience so that in the things in which you are slandered, that people lie about you, those who revile your good behavior in Christ will be put to shame. For it is better, if God should will it so, that you suffer for doing what is right rather than doing what is wrong. To sum up, from this passage, be strong means that we are prepared for the things that we cannot see coming. But we know how to prepare. We know with our behavior, with our attitudes, with our knowledge, with our conviction, and most of all, with our connection to each other and to God through love. Let that be what the people see. Let that be the bond that connects us together. Let that be what gives us strength. Because when we are called upon to do it, this may be what it looks like. That we suffer for doing good. The passage goes on and says, absolutely do not suffer as an evildoer. Suffer because of Jesus? Yep. That's probably going to happen. In fact, the whole theme of 1 Peter is based upon that idea. And I'm not making any kind of dire prediction about freedom of religion in this country or any other thing. I have no idea. I had the football game wrong. Come on. Don't look to me to predict anything. Doesn't matter. Each one of you began 2023 with this thought. Be strong and courageous. In just a minute, we're going to sing a song. I'd like to encourage you to think about your relationship with God. How can we help you? If there is some way that we can encourage you, whether it is becoming a child of God or offering prayers on your behalf, what can we do to encourage you? If there is some way, why don't you come up front while we'll stand and sing our invitation song.